Okay, so today's going to be a little difficult because we're going back to the book. Of course, we like to understand everything we hear or understand everything we read. You know, that's because we're lazy. We like to just take advantage of somebody else's wisdom and make it our own. But the way that we really come into awakening is that we have to ask the questions, we have to ponder, we have to examine, we have to contemplate, we have to study, we have to, it's like, oh, I just want to hear a little bit that agrees with the way I think. And I'm like, yeah, that's enough. And so it's because we don't have this fervent energy that we don't attain, not because attainment is not possible for us, but that we're lazy. So today, I'm going to share some things with you, and you probably will not understand. Oh, that's what he says. He says you don't understand this right now. But it is designed to propel us into some type of action whereby we endeavor to come into the understanding, and then that wisdom becomes our own wisdom. Before that, we're just like repeating things that we've heard, and I won't say pretending it is our wisdom, but thinking it is our wisdom because we've learned the right words, the right jargon. We know a little bit about something, and that's enough, because compared to the next person, that's a lot. But that person is not our standard. Our nor is it our endeavor. Our endeavor is to awaken to the Buddhic mind, and to do that, it's going to take some effort. Some of us think that maybe we're close to being there even. And because of that, we get relaxed in our pursuit of the Dharma. And so we fall asleep thinking we're still awake. For some, we have some certain low-level experiences and think that they are high-level experiences if we compare ourselves to one another. But we are not each other's standard, is what I'm saying. And so if we do these things, we will be lost. I'm reading from the part of imparting that I guess Busita has called section 2.
I just followed the exact way.
So that's how it is. Okay, so then I'm reading from Imparting the Absolute Truth Through the Text of the Heart, Sutra number 2, or section 2, chapter 15. That's in our notes. 203. Sariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. These few clauses from the Heart Sutra are reiterative. Sariputra was a top disciple of the world-honored Shakyamuni Buddha. I love whenever he refers to Shakyamuni, he calls him the world-honored Shakyamuni Buddha. Because he observed the precepts, he was widely learned, had boundless wisdom, and was good at expounding Buddha Dharma. He was foremost in wisdom amongst the disciples of the Buddha. More often, He more often heard discourses personally given by the world-honored one. Additionally, his own insight, his own wisdom was bright, it was high and pure, illuminating the ocean of original nature. Therefore, he expounded Buddha Dharma very well, exquisitely, and correctly. Hence, due to his wisdom, which was prajna wisdom, he was called the one who was foremost in wisdom among the 16 principal disciples of the Buddha. Now, Sari means a sarika bird and was the name of Sariputta's mother. The word Sari or sarika means a type of flying bird, the sarika bird. She was called Sari. His mother's eyes were extremely sharp. That was why she was given the name of that bird. The eyes of the sharika bird are extremely sharp, even sharper than the eyes of an eagle. People say that eagles ride auspicious clouds and can see in detail the surface of a rolling beam on the ground. However, the eyes of a sarika bird are even more amazing. Because the eyes of Sariputta's mother were so powerful, Sariputta's grandparents named Sariputta's mother Sari. The name Sariputta contains the name of his mother. Thus, she is called Sari with the word son added to it. So Putta means son, son of Sari. He also has the name Sari plus fu, pronounced as Shilfu in Chinese, Sheli, Shilafu in Chinese. That is, Sariputta's name is connected with the name his mother was called. He was the son of Sari, hence Sariputta. But the character Fu has two meanings. The first meaning is translated as son. In this regard, it's a combination of the Chinese pronunciation and the Sanskrit pronunciation. But the second meaning is not or no, as is not as good as it should be, or is not. Here it means is not abiding. It connotes not abiding, not being attached, not emptiness, not existence, not coming, and not going. Although the name contains Fu, there actually was no one called Fu who came into being. It is a matter of the conditioned arising and false combinations of the four great elements. Listen to me now. The second meaning of Fu, the translation of Putta, is not. Here it means not abiding. It connotes not abiding, not being attached, not emptiness, not existence, not coming, and not going. Although the name contains Fu, then there actually was no one called Fu who came into being. It is a matter of the conditioned arising and false combinations of the four great elements. So to name that being Fu is a false designation. Thus, there is not or no in his name. Sariputta means that in fact there was no creation of that being. His name is a false designation. So I want you to sit with that for a minute, because this is where we either, the watershed, it just passes by, or we start to penetrate into a deeper meaning of something. You know, we will talk about it and don't get it, talk about it, don't get it, talk about it, don't get it, Talk about it, kind of slightly get it. Talk about it, we get it a little bit. Talk about now, I've heard it 21,000 times. I know to talk the talk. But is it really the truth of it really beginning to manifest for you that you have the realization of something, not the Buddhist words, not the Buddhist jargon? Because that's the only thing that really puts us into the position of excelling beyond the thoughts of the ordinary mind. It's the only thing that separates us from the ordinary mental constructs that we hold. That then this just becomes something to entertain ourselves with. We don't enter into the vision of it, the power of it, the release of it, the freedom of it. We just have some words and say, "Wow, wasn't that a deep Dharma talk?" And then we go home and nothing changes. So it's this steady progress that we can see. And the thing about making progress is that we're like a child learning how to walk. We teeter this way and we plop down on our butts and we fall and we pull ourselves up and we go again and go again until we become steady and firm on our feet. And then we become steady and firm in our gait. And then we can go and anywhere we want. We can just move forward. But until that steadiness is there, we should naturally expect to topple over, to fall down, to plop down. It's like if you could imagine us as babies who are learning to walk, and we find out these things are made for moving. You know, I have this body can go this way and it can go. We learn what we can do, learn what our capacity is. And then we start experimenting with that. How fast can I run? Oop, fall over, giggle, get up and go again. We don't fall into a baby does not fall into a deep depression every time they fall down. Baby just learns something about what it takes to steady themselves so that they can stay up. That's all. But when we get grown, if we can't figure something out right away, I mean, we have no sense of exploration, no sense of wonder, no, everything has to be, I have to have it, I have to have it perfect, you better be perfect. And so we miss the great unfolding that is occurring, because we have these mistaken ideas about what it takes to make something one's own. So this Dharma is for you to make your own. That means you're going to have to spend time investigating, pondering, questioning, maybe researching something, sitting with it to develop it. It takes seeing the danger in our faults, not for you to correct me, but for me to see the danger and for me to correct myself. If I'm trying to get there, but I'm vectoring off that way, I know I just have to make a course correction. It's nothing more than that. It's nothing more than making a course correction. But that's according to our own aspiration. And that's how, the study of the Dharma, investigation of the Dharma can become so dry and dull. But when you catch a glimpse of something and you follow that thread, the joy comes, and also the energy comes from following that thread. And it's through one's own pondering that energy grows and develops and transforms into wisdom. He said, so he's speaking, or this is giving us a picture of us, if you can see it. When we talk about the emptiness of self, Sariputta means that in fact there was no creation of that being. His name was a false designation. A bodhisattva does not see the word bodhisattva, does not see a bodhisattva practicing prajna paramita, and also does not see a bodhisattva not practicing prajna paramita. This is the reason. That is, in fact, that the name is a figure of speech. Only actually, the name doesn't even exist. There actually was no one called Fu who came into being. That is merely a false designation. It is a matter of the conditioned arising and false combination of the four great elements, earth, air, water, and fire. The four elements gathered together only through the union of causes and conditions. That's why it is called the conditioned arising and false combination of the four great elements. The name Fu is a false designation. The name Pannavati is a false designation. There is actually no one called Pannavati who came into being. It's just a matter of the conditioned arising and false combinations of earth, air, fire, and water. And these elements gathered together only through the union of causes and conditions. This is how one should think. This is the antidote for the conceit, I. And you can see why one needs an antidote. Because our every breathing moment is completely subsumed in the concept of I, me, and mine. I in relationship to everyone else, or me in relationship to you, or mine, my family, my children, my town, my car, my clothes, my food, my every moment, my view, my idea, my thoughts, my feelings. And so we necessarily are convinced, but he says this is the illusion. Now, at this point, I want to discuss the conditioned arising false combination of the four great elements. This rosary is a conditioned arising and false combination of the four great elements. Any material object is a conditioned arising and false combination of the four great elements. Any material object is a conditioned arising and false combination of the four great elements. The causes and conditions that produced it, speaking of this rosary, that produced it, include 10 Thai seeds from a 10 Thai tree. I'm talking about this rosary. So the 10 Thai tree definitely has had a certain kind of originating cause and condition. In other words, without the tree, there would not be the beads. So we know that that's an originating cause. Perhaps a person sowed the tiantai seeds at that place so that the tree was planted. Perhaps a bird that had eaten the tiantai seeds discharged those seeds while relieving himself, resulting in those seeds being planted. However, the causes and conditions that merged are not as simple as that. If the seed that produced that tiantai tree had fallen on a rock, it would not have grown to yield the flowers and fruited. Being subject to the wind and the sun, it would have rotted very quickly. Suppose it fell into soft soil and was lightly covered by that soil rather than thickly covered. It would then have received a certain amount of moisture from rain and dew. In that case, it could grow into the tiantai tree and eventually yield tiantai seeds. This process of a series of events requires false combinations produced through causal conditions. So-called causal conditions are conditionally arising causes and conditions. Myriad causes coalesce. For example, encountering soft soil was the first causal condition. Being lightly covered by the soil was the second condition. Encountering rain at the right times was the third causal condition. Not being trampled or stepped on by animals and crushed was the fourth causal condition. Not being destroyed by a person while it was growing was the fifth causal condition. Not being struck by wind or rain was the sixth causal condition. No matter how many causal conditions there were, in short, only with the coming together of those various causes and conditions did this seed grow and mature and grow into the tiantai tree that yielded tiantai seeds so that this beads could be made. Moreover, those seeds had to be picked off the tree by people. After that, the seeds were dried under the sun. Their skin was peeled off. They didn't look like this when they came off the tree, and their core was squeezed and thrown away. At that point, then the seeds were processed by a skillful craftsman who bore holes in each seed and strung the seeds together one by one. Further, formalities relating to the conditioned arising of the rosary must be taken into account. A Buddhist rosary should have 108 beads. In accordance with the causal condition of that set number, 108, not 107, not 109, were strung together. That causal condition was then satisfied. So this rosary, that is the fruit of such causes and conditions, has wound up in my hand. A disciple put it on this desk today, right at this place. Of course, he had a reason for doing so. And as a result, the causal conditions for me to use that to give all of you an example was produced. And so he talked about 10, but this could have been further broken down into 100 different causal conditions just to produce this rosary. And by the same token, we are part of all phenomena. And so we appear also due to causes and conditions. We didn't just pop out from nowhere and say, I'm here. Therefore, everything in the world, every little bit, including me and you, is a false combination produced by causal conditions. Why are they called false combinations? All things that abide in impermanence and undergo the process of arising, existing, decaying, and vanishing are called false combinations. Therefore, to name that being food is even a false designation. For it is a matter of the conditioned arising and false combinations of the four great elements. This includes the physical body of Sariputta at that time and your physical body at this time. Thus, his name has not in it. What a lesson. So he inherently did not exist, being empty and illusory. And inherently, we do not exist, being empty and illusory. Because Sariputta possessed his own natural wisdom, he was able to use his mother's voice to debate, while even in his mother's womb. So while he was still not born, he was able to debate with experts and masters through the mouth of the voice of his mother. Can you tell how amazing he was? He mounted the rostrum to debate at the age of 7. He was unmatched among the treatise masters of the various countries and kingdoms. And at that time, the various countries and kingdoms of what is now India, there were a great many non-Buddhist trained masters, treatise masters. They spoke of philosophical theories such as Western philosophical theories relating to aesthetics, philosophical theories related to the three united as one, philosophical theories related to outer space, related to personhood and self-related several delusion, related to emptiness and existence, and so on. Also included were philosophical theories relating to conducting oneself in society and to society itself. And Sariputta debated with all of these philosophers on all of these subjects. However, none of those masters from the various countries and kingdoms could prevail over him in debate. He was 7 years old. How amazing he was. His first teacher, is this me? Let me see if I could. His first teacher was a master of non-Buddhist teachings. His name was Sanjaya. What is meant by non-Buddhist teachings? Simply teachings that are not the absolute truth of Buddha Dharma, teachings that cannot end the cycle of birth and death and lead to the existence in the 3 spheres. So basically, teachings that cannot end the cycle of birth and death in samsara. That's what non-Buddhist teachings are. So it's not a matter of the, when we think of Buddhist teachings versus non-Buddhist teachings, we think of different religions, and we say, well, all religions, basically point in the same direction, no, they don't. A lot of them do, but then it's like completing high school versus just finishing elementary school or finishing junior high school. There's nothing wrong with elementary school. There's nothing wrong with junior high school. Matter of fact, if you don't go to elementary and junior high and you just start at the 10th grade, you're probably not going to be able to learn anything because you don't have the foundation. You don't have the foundation and the elementary understandings, elementary meaning fundamental, not like low level, meaning the fundamental understandings you need to have to be able to capture the wisdom that's unfolding on the high school level. That's all it means. So it's not saying like this is the true teaching and this is the false teaching. It's just what level is it? That's all. So he started with Sanjaya in his on his wisdom journey. These other non-Buddhist teachings, they are not the paths of seeing with wisdom. Even Buddhists who do not understand prajna and have not awakened to the absolute truth also belong to the category of those on the outside path. So everybody who is calls himself a Buddhist is not necessarily a Buddhist. So that's a question for you today. You have to understand the distinctions between whether you're truly on the path or whether you've picked this up as something, to look at for a minute, to study, to investigate. There's a difference. The Buddhist teachings are those that take us on a path of seeing with prajna. Prajna is not ordinary wisdom, right? So I said, don't translate prajna as wisdom because it's not something that we possess. It is something that becomes apparent only when we're in the state of the Dhammakaya. So the wisdom abides in that state of Dhammakaya. And if we're not in that state, then it's not wisdom. That's the end of the path. How silly it would be for us to think ourselves wise with the wisdom of prajna at our current state. So for some of us, we could say, you silly goose. How arrogant it would be. How it just doesn't even make sense to even think in my present state with what I know about things that are easily knowable, much less things that are profound, that I possess or even should possess the wisdom. How much have I given to it? I hear all the time that lay people have, so many things to do. So they don't have time for a lot of Dharma because they have so many things to do. They can't spend 2 hours a week in their personal time studying Dharma or an hour a day because they have too many things to do. So it just really means that I prize those other things more than this because I find the time to do what I really want to do. So how silly, how arrogant it would be for those who find it difficult to give an hour a day to their personal cultivation to begin to judge those who give 10 hours a day to it. I'm just saying, I'm just talking now. I'm talking about right view. I'm talking about respecting what it takes to penetrate this level of truth. A lot of people don't want it, and that's okay, that's no problem. But one shouldn't think that they can invest an hour a week and be comparable or arrogant to those who invest 10 hours a day. Have some respect, what I'm saying. It'll serve you well. Because it's through that kind of conceit that you get blocked off and you can't grow and you can't advance. I'm just saying to the baby, Don't try to cross the street before it's time because you're liable to get run over. Just like a good mother would hold that baby back from that corner. So this is what is meant by non-Buddhist teachings, just teachings that are not the absolute truth that can end the cycle of birth and death, nothing more than that. We, shouldn't use other phrases like, because this is the truth and your teaching is false. Not comparing it with in those kinds of religious ways is what I'm saying. So in that way, we don't denigrate any other religion and saying that ours is the truth and yours is not. It's just a matter of end destination. That's all. There are practitioners of non-Buddhist ways within Buddhism who wear Buddhist robes and who utter Buddhist terminology. They all should be called those who are outside of Buddhism. It's like you're a baker when you bake, That's what I used to tell my kids all the time. We opened this bakery, and they like to walk around town bragging now that, like they're big. I remember had graduation, those kids had on their baker's hats and everything, and they parading all up and down Main Street, wouldn't take off their jackets and their hats, because they were so proud. I was so proud for them, but I'm gonna look when I come to wake you up at 4 tomorrow morning because we got to get that bread ready for Ingles. I don't want to hear anything. You just remember today while you strutting around downtown with your baker's uniform on. Okay. This includes Taoists. Of course, he's speaking to a Chinese audience, and so he especially goes into Taoism or Confucianism, and and talks about some of the differences in the ideals there. So outside is in contradistinction to inside, and it is not derogatory. It just says that outside paths still have not reached the absolute truth of prajna and cannot lead to the ending of cyclic existence. That is why they are, for the time being, placed outside of Buddhism. So after Sanyaya passed away, Sariputta heard of Shakyamuni Buddha, and he heard that the Buddha Dhamma was unfathomably lofty and profound, and that it could work perfect with everything, and that it could truly enable people to become liberated from samsara. And he went to the world-honored one to seek knowledge and to learn the Dhamma. And after going there and listening to the Buddha impart the Dhamma, he immediately released the conditions that bound his mind. And because his wisdom was so high, as soon as he listened to Buddha Dhamma, as soon as he listened to the Buddha impart prajna, he immediately realized the states of a Savaka and a Pachika Buddha. He then became a monk and practiced according to the Buddha's teachings, and he later attained the realization of a great arhat. He cultivated himself earnestly, attaining the stage of a great arhat. Okay, so it says because his wisdom was so high, as soon as he listened to Buddha Dhamma, as soon as he listened to the Buddha impart prajna, he immediately realized certain states. Now, how did his wisdom get so high?
Training and diligence.
Listen to the Dharma.
Nope, missed it. Nope, missed it.
was born with it.
Nope. Well, I would say there's some karmic conditions tied up in that, but specifically what he is saying here is what I want you to get. So, okay, let's listen again. His first teacher was a master of non-Buddhist teachings. His name was Sanjaya. What is meant by non-Buddhist teachings? Teachings that are not the absolute truth of the Dharma, that cannot end the cycle of birth and death and lead to existence in the three spheres. That's what non-Buddhist teachings are. So it says, because his wisdom, soon after Sanjaya passed away, Sariputta heard about the Buddha. And he heard that the Buddha was unfathomably lofty and profound, that it could work perfect with everything, and that it could truly enable people to become liberated from samsara. So after going there and listening to the Buddha impart the Dhamma, he immediately released the conditions that bound his mind. Because his wisdom was so high, as soon as he listened to the Buddha Dhamma, as soon as he listened to the Buddha impart prajna, he immediately realized the states of a savaka, solitary, practitioner, and a Pachika Buddha. And then he went on and he became a monk and he practiced according to the teachings. And then he became an arhat and then a great arhat. So my question was, how did his wisdom get so high?
He had trained with a non-Buddhist master.
Yes, yes, that's what I'm getting at. He trained, when it's time to go to school, we have grades of school. We have schools that are great, that are grade stations of each other, if that makes sense, if that's right. So when I start with K or pre-K and go through elementary school, I'm establishing a foundation. None of us just show up here today with no, spiritual foundation. If we do, I can guarantee you will not be able to get anything. And this is a place for those who have a spiritual foundation, a place where they can come to go further. It's not my job to become a kindergarten teacher if they come to this school. If so, then the ones who should be in this school cannot advance. When I was young, we had tracks in school. So we had 6 tracks. You had the gifted track, then you had the first track 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4, that makes 5. And then we had the special ed. And you tested in, or if your teacher noticed that you accelerate, work faster, you're bored because you finished your assignment in 5 minutes and it took everybody else a half an hour, then they would move you sometimes to a different track so that those who had the capacity to accelerate, not necessarily because they were so much smarter, but because it had a foundation that allowed them to pick up other concepts quicker. Not that they were smarter, but because they had the foundations that allowed them to pick up on new concepts quicker, and you were placed in that grade. And then once you were in there, if you couldn't keep up, then so that you wouldn't be struggling and frustrated, they would put you in a different track with where you could learn at a pace that was sort of equal to everybody else in the class. And of course, those things all got abused because people are who they are. But that was sort of like the premise for the track system. And so part of this is having a certain foundation. It doesn't have to be a Buddhist foundation. Doesn't have to be a Buddhist foundation. And that's why somebody can come in and not know much about anything. But as this is laid out, because they have some foundation, it may not have been even any kind of a spiritual, what we would call spiritual foundation. May not have learned it in church or in the mosque or in the synagogue or out there in the trees or whatever your particular kind of spiritual practice is. It doesn't necessarily even have to be that. If you look at Confucianism, it wasn't a lot of like spiritual things because that dealt with your duty to society, your duty to your fellow man. But they are aspirations that fall on the side of goodness, on the side of integrity, on the side of virtue, on the side of taking care of another like you would take care of yourself, on the side of loyalty, on the side, like that. And so you learn something. So sometimes people come in and they don't know that much about the Dhamma, and they're saying that's okay. It's the principles of conduct that and the leaning of the mind that inclines one towards being able to grasp these teachings. But you got to hear them. You can't always hear what you already know. You have to hear something else and see how that lands. And if it lands on you in a place where you are developed, then your understanding just opens up like that. If it lands on you in a place where you don't understand something, then you have to ponder, reflect. You have to be willing to surrender for the time being what you already think you know in order to really be able to, with full frontal attention, penetrate something else, and then you can evaluate what you already know in light of this new thing and see if there's some kind of an adjustment that needs to be made. Just based on your logic that's flowing out right now. So it says, as we learn from Buddha now, we do not necessarily have to follow a certain person. What is most crucial is seeing the true Dharma of Shakyamuni. It will also be good if we practice in accord with such true Dharma. We should also earnestly forge ahead and master that Dharma without the slightest deviation. So what is most crucial is not following a certain person, but seeing the Dharma. What is also good is if we practice in accord with that Dharma. And what is also good is that we earnestly forge ahead and master that Dharma. Are there any such disciples here among you? Yes, respected elder Mr. Hong here will be 90 years old next year. After he hears the Dharma, he immediately lives according to it without deviating from it. He came from a few thousand li away. He talked about how accomplished he was in worldly and family affairs. He talked about how accomplished he was first in worldly and family affairs. If your family affairs are a mess, and if your worldly affairs are a mess, and when you go to pick up the Dhamma, you just want to step into the Dhamma, and the Dhamma will fix your worldly affairs. He says, no. As you step into the Dhamma will say you have to learn how to solve your own problems. So that's the first thing the Dhamma is going to teach you, how to get your family affairs in order and how to get your worldly affairs in order. So we shouldn't see these as separate. Family is separate from worldly affairs, is separate from Dhamma, spiritual Dhamma. We shouldn't see these as three separate designations. In a way they are, only like in terms of order of priority. But all worldly Dhamma, that's Buddha Dhamma. First thing that the Dhamma will do is help you straighten up your family affairs. Now, on the outside, that might look ugly. You know how you've gone along 20, 40 years in a certain way, and I mean, you got the whole schlick down, the whole shebang. I remember when my brother died, and we had the funeral, and they had me give the eulogy. And all of these people from his job, came through to say what they want to say, what a great man he was, and he would give you anything, and he'd give you the shirt off his back and blah, blah, blah. When I got up, I said, that one y'all were talking about, our family didn't know him. Now, he's my brother and I love him, but I just tell you, our family never met that guy. And my mother was a little bit upset, just a little. She was just a little bit upset. But funerals are for the living, they're not for the dead. So I wanted to leave those people with something, because one day that coffin box is going to have your number on it, and people are going to talk about you or how sweet you were and all that, but it better be true. And if it's not, I just want to give you a 411, so. So now they want to know what I'm going to say before I do a funeral. Yeah. Yeah, so when I gave my niece's funeral, she was an evangelist. Oh, she was the sweetest person. But she was always, needing something, because she took everything she had and gave it away. She would be up day and night doing other people's work, working for the great evangelist, this person, and the great evangelist, that person, and writing all their stuff, and buying a car, buying them cars, and she's catching the bus, and all of this. And at her funeral, they acted a fool. They were like, how she was the greatest person in the world, and all of that, and they kept talking one after another, all of these evangelists and pastors and teachers and that she served, and they kept saying what a great servant she was, and how she was going to have, now she was getting her reward, what a great servant she was. So when I got up, I said, well, first of all, I'm not going to give a eulogy, because each one of you gave one when you came up here. They were supposed to keep their comments down to, under like 2 minutes, but each one had to give a sermon, I said, so I'm not going to give a eulogy, because each one of you gave one when you came up. But I'm going to tell you about Denise. And I said, she wasn't in the category that you think. At the end of his life, Jesus turned to his disciples and said, henceforth, I no longer call you servants. He said, I call you friends. because I've given you all that I know. I said, so she was not his servant. She was his friend. So you better watch out how you treat his friends. Too late for you to make a change concerning her. But it was going to be my only chance to say something to them that they should know, being all pompous and arrogant, using people. Because he said the judgment will first fall on the church. The ones who told me I couldn't wear a Buddhist robe and give the eulogy. I had to wear street clothes to do it. So, but I did, because I had a message to give. And so I'm saying that these are not things to like play around with, because they are mighty and they are powerful. And if you get a bit of it, you'll be held accountable for every bit you get. And so we have to really walk a path of honesty, integrity, clear seeing, and humility, or this conceit I that is comprised of the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water. This false combination will lead you in a wrong direction. And you will have a fall, and great will be the fall of it. And if you choose to go that way, don't take others with you, because you will have to bear the burden of what you cost others, in going in a wrong direction. So we're getting serious now when we get to this section of the book. And we thought we understood what he was talking about before, but he's bringing it around again to let us know we didn't really understand. He's like polishing the mirror. But it's necessary, because we're so covered over and obscured by our kilesas, our false notions, not deliberately false, but false nonetheless. And so it's a very serious undertaking. He said, are there any such disciples here among you who want to see the true Dharma, practice it in accordance with such truth, forge ahead, and master it? Are there any here among you? He said, so he talked about this guy, and he said that after he hears the Dharma, he immediately lives according to it without deviating. And he came from a few thousand li away. And he talked about how accomplished he was. He said he could secretly practice the Buddhist path at home, since he has a good family and environment, and he has a high status. However, that is not what he wants. He said, my impermanence will soon arise. I must come here and follow my master. I was very moved by this, and I will enable him to become accomplished. I'll even let him learn Dharma that he should not learn, because his holy state can move the 3 continents of the universe. Otherwise, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas would not be happy. Thus, Buddha Dharma is unselfish. As long as you strive to learn, I think all of you can attain the highest state. Sariputta was amazing. You disciples should strive to be like him and also become amazing. Because he attained the fruit of great arhatship, he took the opportunity of the Heart Sutra assembly to initiate karmic conditions during that Dharma assembly. He did not do that for his own sake. He did that for the sake of initiating, starting, creating karmic conditions, for the sake of the arising of such karmic conditions, so that the karmic conditions would come together to bring about this teaching, and that this teaching could be imparted to living beings. For this special purpose, he respectively beseeched Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva to impart the marvelous principles of learning and practicing the Dharma method of profound prajna, which means the most profound, the highest, and the greatest prajna. Prajna is divided into many levels, but he beseeched the impartation of the most marvelous principles. And so Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva gave that discourse. But it takes the wisdom of Sariputta in order to understand his meaning. Had the discourse been given to people other than Sariputta, they would not have understood. So she directed it to the one who could understand, but it set in motion the potential for it to be available for those who apply themselves to all understand. It was in accordance with the maturing of causes and conditions that Sariputta's name was specifically called out in that impartation of the Dharma. I'm imparting the Dharma here. You disciples are unable to understand it. There's a reason for that. It is because no matter what aspect it may be, you should be very humble when you begin, when being compared to Sariputta. Were you able to make use of your mother's mouth to speak while still in the womb? Did you mount the rostrum to debate at the age of 7? I'm excluding those disciples who have attained states of realization, or those who have advanced to a certain stage of bodhisattva. Now I'm just talking to ordinary disciples. So as you disciples who have not, you're quite lacking indeed. So it is impossible for you to understand. That is because one must have the wisdom of Sariputta to be able to truly understand this particular Dharma being imparted. One cannot use the mind consciousness of an ordinary being to analyze what the meaning of this is and what the meaning of that is, and so on. So what consciousness is that he's talking about? Which mind consciousness? 6. 6 mind consciousness. Nonetheless, you still have to analyze. It says one cannot use the mind consciousness of an ordinary being to analyze the meaning of these teachings, what this means and that means, and so on. He's already saying it's impossible for you to understand. Nonetheless, you still have to analyze. You still have to turn the light inward and introspect. Great questions lead to great awakening. Small questions lead to small awakening. No questions leads to no awakening. Awaken to however much you can receive the benefits in stages. There are many levels of prajna, billions of levels. Awaken to whatever level you can awaken to. Therefore, I still try my best to impart this wisdom to you disciples. The 4 clauses of the Heart Sutra, beginning with form does not differ from emptiness, are reiterative. Form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. These clauses explain the meaning of the 5 aggregates being empty. They mainly explain the meaning of no form, no feeling, no conceptualization, no action, and no consciousness. All of these five aggregates being empty. The word form here does not mean all the colors that the eye can see. Rather, it's referring to all things subject to impermanence, change, and decay, including what has form and what has no manifest form. All of these are included in form. So we need to first clearly understand the aggregate of form, one of the five aggregates. The aggregate of form is the most important one, and I'm going to stop after I talk about the aggregate of form so that you can spend all week working on this. The aggregate of form is the most important one of the aggregates. If one realizes the emptiness of the aggregate of form, the other aggregates will naturally be realized as also empty. So-called form is not the color seen by the eyes. It's not true that only the things that our eyes can see are called form. Rather, form is all things subject to impermanence, change, and decay. It is whatever is impermanent. It's sentient beings that will definitely die, and it's insentient things that will definitely break down and ultimately perish. Even you as human beings are experiencing that impermanence right now, moment by moment, second by second. In the last hour or so that we've spent together, you have been sliding towards decay. Even though you don't look any different than when you walked in the door, you have been dying, and you're 1 hour closer to the breaking apart of those aggregates. There is no essence that exists as changes are ceaselessly taking place. So when we're talking about mindfulness, it's being acutely aware of that every second we're moving towards the total breakup of the body and mind. Everything whatsoever that is subject to impermanence is called form. What is form? Everything that is subject to impermanence, including that which has no manifest form. Everything is not hardcore solid like this. That is, invisible things that cannot manifest concrete shapes or colors also belong to the aggregate of form. And those things can be sentient, but of different composition. Some people have the capacity to see them, these forms, sentient forms, to see them, to hear them, to feel them, to know that they are present. Others don't have that sensitivity, or that particular faculty is not, and I won't say it's not developed enough. It's just because of causes and conditions that when it's not manifesting for you. We think that everything that can be developed should be developed. But that's not true. What should be developed is that which is suitable for you karmically to do. Not everything that's out there that can be done. That's why people are getting into so much trouble out there on the internet. There's so much information, too much information, and all of this information about psychic stuff and mystical stuff, and and they're and they're entering into territories, you know, and setting themselves up for things that was really not, you know, the way that they personally should go. So they're getting all confused and playing with fire, because these are real things. These are real dimensions. These are real creatures. And they touch what they know nothing about, have not had a basis to even be able to encounter, meet up with certain things. It's causing a lot of harm and a lot of damage, and that will only increase. Once one realizes the aggregate of form as being empty, however, one will naturally and easily realize the other four aggregates as being empty, one by one in sequence. The key is how to realize the emptiness of the aggregate of form. The Dharma of emptiness that follows is different from the earlier one and is a higher level Dharma of emptiness. The emptiness we are talking about here refers to true emptiness based on prajna. It refers to illusory forms being inherently devoid of selfness. That's something that I have to sit and ponder on. Who am I? Who's Pannavati? She's Robert Valentine Jones and Lily Mae Ingram's daughter. She is, I can talk about who she is in that sense, you know, and that's where I start. But he's saying that what came before that? That Gandhava, who took up residence in Lily Mae Ingram's belly, that she gave life and brought into fruition, who was that? And what was that? It refers to the entity itself, the essence being empty. Because if you keep going, what came before that, what came before that, what came before that, you find that there is no first cause. If we look at this tree, how did this tree get here? Through the seed of a previous tree? And how did that one get there? Through the seed of a previous tree? And if you track it all the way back, there's no first tree. So something came out of or manifested out of nothingness. That is the Dhammakaya. So it means that Pannavati does not have a Dhammakaya. It means that this is Dhammakaya and that Pannavati is a temporary false, meaning put together through causes and conditions, right? That she is a temporary manifestation of Dhammakaya. Not that Dhammakaya is my Pannavati, my original nature. The Dhammakaya is not my original nature. There is Dhammakaya, of which I am a proliferation of a false, a temporary image of. And that's really all I want you to begin to contemplate this week. We got to get to this emptiness thing. And as long as I think that emptiness is my original nature, then I become primary. It's me, a part of me. And that's what has to flip in our understanding. There is the Dhammakaya, of which, due to causes and conditions, Pannavati has arisen. And if we could just hold that much, just thinking on that, because this is what he asks us to think on. That's the only way that, you know how when you get new glasses and like when you're at the eye doctor, like, wow, when he clicked them things and said, how do you see? Pretty good. It's a little hazy. It's clear now. And then he gets to that perfect vision. And then he makes the glasses. But then when you put those glasses on and you first start wearing them, like they hurt your eyes. Because you already have a mode of seeing, a way of seeing. And when if your eyes have gotten really bad, but you've gotten used to seeing that way, it's like when I had my eye surgery, and I saw everything was so like bright and sharp, it like hurt my eyes, because my eyesight had gotten dim with the cataracts, and I thought that's how things look. So now I have new lens in there, and like everything looks different. Everything is all bright. Everything, but I had become accustomed to seeing in a certain way. So because of our delusions, we are accustomed to seeing things in a kind of diluted, incorrect way. That's why you can't take something new and overlay it through those same lens. So he's establishing or giving us the new lens. And now we have to look at things through that lens. And that can be piercing. It can be sharp. It can be too bright. You have to blink. Sometimes you have to like cover your eyes. He says, keep looking through that lens, because and that's going to really correct your understanding. So that's the first thing I want you to do. Thinking that there exists the Dharmakaya, and out of the Dharmakaya, due to various causes and conditions, Pannavati arose. That's it. Just thinking that much. It was a Dharmakaya, and through causes and conditions, here comes my mother and my father. The Gandhava, that's the forward linking consciousness, settles there, and I emerge. That's the last link of the chain. I pop out. So at the base of whatever false or temporary appearance you see here is the what? The Dharmakaya. If we do that, we will stop placing so much emphasis on first of all, on ourselves. So we don't have to try to beat the self down. The self will just begin to gradually dissolve and fade away. Along with that is all the fear that goes with having a self. Of protecting it, of making sure it's warm enough, making sure it has enough, making sure it has what it likes, making sure all of that, the weight of all of that begins to fall away. It's like blowing up a balloon and there's nothing inside. Just the free air of the Dhammakaya, nothing. They call it the heartwood. And that's after a tree. It's a tree that grows like this, and it grows like vines, but inside the tree is hollow. It's empty. So if you could just see yourself as through causes and conditions, you have emerged like the heartwood, but inside, hollow and empty. And just see how that makes you feel this weekend, how it makes you, how it enables you to relate to others, and how it assists you in dealing with the vicissitudes of life, the things that come up every day for you. If there was no one to protect, if there was no one to be attached to, if you can experience the vastness of the emptiness around that thought, the freedom and the joy that it brings. Our anxieties and our fears, they're all of our making. They're all of our own making, based on how we feel and how solidly we connect to an egoic sense of a personal I. Now, that doesn't mean like leave your family, give away all your wealth. It doesn't mean any of those things. It's just imagining that at the base of this creature, there's the pure ground of emptiness. It even sounds good. Even if it wasn't true, it just sounds good. Don't you get tired of yourself? Don't you get tired of all the things you have to deal with about yourself? Yeah, it's tiring. It has weight. It has weight. We can feel it. We can feel it. And this is an invitation of how one can lay all of that down. It doesn't mean, we're going to the second part, it doesn't mean that you cease to be. It doesn't mean that at all. But now you're starting to understand form is none other than emptiness, but emptiness is form. So if you don't understand form is emptiness and emptiness is form, there's nowhere else to go. You have to stay with it until you get it. So he'll talk about a little something, and then he'll come back to this emptiness. Then he'll vector off and talk about a little something, just to give your mind a chance to, relax and get back in its own, like, human zone. And then he'll go back and he'll talk about it again. So today, you're probably feeling confused. That's a very good place to be. Because if you think you've penetrated this, then you probably are very confused and don't know it. Better to know it, because that gives us the hope of dispelling the confusion. So if you have, I'll wait until she comes and cuts that off before I'll say my closing on this. I thank you all for coming today. Now, this is really serious because we're right at a jumping off point. And I want to make sure that we can all go together. And if we don't get this, we will approach it again. But now we're at the form is none other than emptiness. Emptiness is none other than form. Just getting a glimpse of it will put you on a completely different trajectory. Thank you, sister. Can you turn the...